Delusional fiancé is livid that I got my daughter 5 pairs of running shoes and is demanding that I provide for her 3 kids too. So I told her to start packing. My fiancé has 3 kids with her ex, meanwhile I only have 1 kid with my ex, my daughter. My daughter is a state qualifying cross-country and track runner. This means that her training schedule is rather intense, with her weekly mileage reaching into the high 70s and low 80s. At her most recent sports physical, I asked her doctor how often I should replace her shoes because I'm sure they get worn out pretty quickly with the number of miles she's running each week. Her doctor recommended switching the shoes out every 6 months, as well as getting 2 pairs of shoes so she can switch out the pair she's wearing every other day or so. However, her shoes may need to get replaced earlier depending on how intense her weeks get. After the appointment, I took my daughter out to a few athletic stores so she could pick out a few pairs. I told her to pick out 4 pairs of running shoes, 2 for track season and 2 for cross country. Then I told her to pick out a pair of spikes for her races. I spent over $300 on her shoes. When we came home my fiancé saw the bags my daughter was holding and my daughter excitedly told her about the new shoes she had gotten. My fiancé stayed quiet until later that night while we were getting ready for bed. She started yelling at me for being irresponsible and a horrible person to her own kids. She said she was very mad because I should also get her kids shoes if I spent over $300 for my daughter. I mentioned that we agreed we would each provide for our own kids on our own, and her kids don't play any sports. They all sit in their rooms all day on their electronics, and even when I do buy them something they never say thank you or appreciate what I get them. She got even angrier and did not talk to me for 2 weeks. Then, my daughter's Nintendo Switch completely stopped working earlier this week. Yesterday she had her conference cross-country meet, where she both PR'd and qualified to run the state. To celebrate her new achievements, I took her out to eat, and then bought her a new Nintendo Switch with a game she picked out. My fiancé came back from her parents earlier today and saw my daughter playing with her Switch. She asked me about it after my daughter left with her boyfriend and I told her that I wanted to celebrate her accomplishments in her running career so I got her a new Switch as a gift. My fiancé then got really angry and told me that if I was going to buy my daughter something then I have to be fair and buy her own kids something too. I pointed out that I do buy her kids gifts when they reach goals and achievements too. She told me that it's unfair I spend more on my daughter than I do on her kids because I make a lot more than her. My fiancé then got angrier and accused me of not liking her kids because of the different financial treatment between her kids and my kid. She left with her 2 sons, but her daughter stayed with me at the house because she was on my side. She came back at noon alone. She said she left the boys at her parents' place because she doesn't, in her words, want them in the presence of a man who won't provide for them. I sat her down and talked to her about a lot of things and a lot of you were right, this is not the woman I want to marry. When I first brought up how she doesn't bring anything to the table when I pay for everything, she didn't want to talk about it and kept dodging the subject. I brought up how unfair it was of her to expect me to provide for her and her children when she doesn't do anything for my daughter and the bare minimum for me. She doesn't do house chores, she doesn't pay bills, and she spends minimal time with both me and my daughter. Fiancé didn't say anything. Then I talked about the financial and emotional abuse. She freaked the fuck out. She started yelling about how it was my job as the man to provide for her and her kids when I make so much more than her and they have no father figure. I'm all they had and she kept bringing that up as an excuse for her behavior towards my money and how I spent it on my daughter. When I asked her what she expected me to do about my will or a prenup she told me that any good husband would put his wife above everyone else. She had been banking on me giving her everything I had for over a year at this point. I don't like yelling at all but I was at my breaking point with her at this point. We yelled at each other a lot. It's not my finest moment and I'm ashamed but I realized that I let so much happen and my daughter suffered as a result of it. I told her about her neglect towards my child and I will not tolerate it any longer. She is my #1 priority over everyone else and always will be. I don't think my fiancé believed me when I said that, but I guess she realized I was serious when I told her to start packing. I'm done being an ATM for that lady, and it's crazy to think how strangers on an app made me realize how I was stuck in such a toxic, manipulative, and abusive relationship with her. My, now ex, fiancé won't be a problem anymore, I hope. I don't think I'll be with another person for a long time, but thank you to everyone for the support.